Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. Heather, what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about building a relationship with a new dog. And the reason that we are going to talk about this is, well, it was inspired by a Facebook post that I did. So we'll just start off with me reading that post. And it said, building a relationship with a new dog when the love of your life is still here is as hard as I thought it would be. It is also becoming a different type of joy in my life, and my heart is stretching to make room. Why am I emotional already? Trin sure is undeniable, and we are finding our way. I'm thankful she has been patient with me.
Mm.
Oh, there's so much there.
There's a lot to unpack in that very brief little post. There's so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah, I think that I always knew it would be hard. I mean, I definitely talked about it. I probably talked about it on the podcast.
Probably, yeah.
I talked about how I really thought it was going to be hard, and I struggled with timing
Mhm.
and when it was right to bring in a new dog, especially a dog that is meant to sort of carry my heart on. We'll just say it nicely that way.
Mhm.
It's as hard as I expected it to be. Maybe a little harder in some ways because I think that the emotional stuff stacked on top of the regular puppy stuff,
Yeah.
and that became really difficult for a while. That's even me, who's fully prepared and trains other people's puppies. I
Yeah.
still was really, really, really struggling for a bit.
Why do you think it was different with Trin than it was with the bulldog?
Because the
Because
bulldog
he
was
can.
never mine.
Ah,
He was never mine. The bulldog was meant to come into our home to be a little heart glue for Jer. He was
ah,
never, and even though I do all the things I do with bulldog, he's not my dog.
mm.
So it's just
No, he's
really,
my
really
dog.
different. Yeah, he's Christy's dog. um, yeah, he was just never meant to be mine. So it's
Yeah.
completely different. And I think that, okay, I'm just gonna say I'll probably get emotional like a million times during this episode, but Jer and I were talking about Tiago a few weeks ago, and he said to me, you know what, honey? You're really lucky to have that once in a lifetime
Mm.
love with
Mhm.
another, and this is my husband saying this to me, so with another being that fills your soul the way that Tiago does. And like,
Mm.
I love my husband, but he does understand that Tiago and I are bonded in just a different kind of way,
Mhm.
a once in a lifetime kind of way.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's hard to describe that. When you see it, you can see it, but I captured no, you captured on video a moment when our dogs were playing together, my foster and your dogs, and you called Tiago back so that the puppies could
Mhm.
play a little bit. And he came up and just the look in his eye with you, you sent me the video just nonchalantly, like, oh, here's the dogs playing. And it melted my heart
Yeah,
because I was like, that dog has never looked at me that way. And I've
yeah.
never seen him look at another human being that way, the way he looks at you deep in your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. So it feels a little bit, part of my struggle was feeling like it was unfair
Mm,
to bring another dog in. And I don't know if we have talked about it before, but the first time that I ever video chatted with Trin's breeder, Lisa, I started crying on the video chat with her because
mhm.
I was telling her that my future puppy from her had these really huge shoes to fill, and
Sure.
that this puppy was going to be the puppy that helped me realize what life was without Tiago, and
Mm,
that was a really big deal.
yeah.
And I gotta say, all the respect in the world for a breeder to be like, yeah, I definitely would have said one of my puppies, but I also like recognize that if I were in her shoes, I'd be thinking if this person can feel 50% for my puppy what she feels for this current dog, that's plenty. But
Mhm,
I have all the respect in the world for breeders who put so much in. And that's part of the reason why we haven't talked about this at all up until this point, Trim being 8 months old, because I really have so much respect for her breeder. And it's like, I love her, but I have struggled. And
mhm,
it has nothing to do with her.
mhm,
She's awesome.
mhm,
And in typical fashion, my husband has stepped up and fallen in love with this dog and freaking
mhm.
taken her over. But she's not lacking for anything, but our relationship is a slow burn
Mm,
and it's taking time to build. And
yeah,
she came home in November and I made that post April 21st. It's taken me that long to really be like, okay, we're finding our way. I kind of just wanted to talk about it because I think that it's, I don't know, embarrassing isn't the right word, but
there's a lot of shame, I think, in not
yeah, bonding.
bonding with your puppy or not just being head over heels for your own puppy. Because, like, what kind of monster doesn't love their puppy, you
Thanks,
know?
Christy,
But I think
as I
that
slowly raise my hand.
right, right? But, I mean, I went through that with Lucy too.
Yeah,
I definitely it took quite a while for us to bond, and I did have people say, "Are you okay with her? Like,
yeah,
is this gonna be okay?" And I was like, "I
yeah.
don't know. I don't like her, so I don't know."
I think I had more guilt about it too because I plan like I don't go into my
Yeah,
next dog lightly and I plan
right.
them for so long and I
Mhm,
feel I'm so analytical about those decisions and I try to be really really cautious because we don't add dogs very often at this point in our lives.
right.
And
It
so
almost, like, sets you
it's
up
more
for more
pressure.
pressure. Yeah, like,
Yes.
it has to be perfect then,
Yeah.
because 'cause you've done the research, you've spent all this time, you've
Mhm.
spent your money,
Mhm.
you've bonded with the breeder.
Mhm.
Of course it has to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I invested in all this time to travel to Canada twice.
Mhm,
I built up this whole thing, we talked about it on the
yeah,
podcast. I'm a huge believer in responsible breeding, all
mhm,
this stuff. I'm doing it all the right way. I'm doing everything the right way, Christy. Why isn't it
mhm.
perfect?
Right.
Yeah.
And that feeling of you really do deserve it to be perfect because 'cause you've done all the things
Yeah, I don't
to
think life
make it
happens
perfect.
that way though.
No, it doesn't, but it sure feels like
Yeah.
we should deserve, you know? We put in the work, we deserve the results of that.
You know what? I more so feel like Trin deserves the perfect.
Mm, mhm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's where my guilt came from, was like
Mhm,
me looking at this puppy and being like, this is everything you asked for. Like, this is
mhm,
literally the puppy you wanted.
mhm,
She's the exact personality you asked for. And the match is perfect. What is wrong with you that you can't bond
mhm.
with this puppy who is very clearly what you wanted? And I'm thankful that we're rounding the corner here. I like her.
Yeah.
No, I love her most days. But it was really hard and I didn't want to talk about it because I mean, Christy and I put our hearts out here, for anyone to listen to, and I didn't want to in any way disrespect her breeder or hurt her feelings.
Yeah,
And
because can you imagine if you put your heart and soul into a puppy
mhm,
and then you hear people talking about it that, like, they don't love this puppy
mhm,
or that it's just not what they expected or
mhm.
that yeah, that would be really hurtful.
And I don't think it has anything to do with Trin. I think it has
Mm-mm.
everything to do with Tiago.
Right.
Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah.
yeah. And him and I and our bond. And I sure do appreciate Lisa being willing to still sell me a puppy,
Right.
considering the way I fawn over Tiago and the way I talk about him and everything. But I today I can see a future where Trin and I have a relationship. It's going to be different, but
Of course.
that she
She's a
is
very
my ride
different
or
dog.
die. Yeah, that she is
Yeah.
my ride or die. And one of
Mhm.
my friends commented on that post, and all she said was, "It's just different."
Mhm.
And it is.
Yeah. I would say, some of your previous ride or dies have been very different than Tiago.
Yeah,
Each
but
one of
I've
those are so
never
different.
had a Tiago.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And she won't be a Tiago, but
no.
she will be a ride or die.
Yes. No, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. I think it's like that
There's
pressure
only one
thing that
Tiago.
yeah, I think it's that pressure thing that you talked about though. I have built this up and I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself for her to be this once in a lifetime whatever. And that's probably on me to like let that go. And it's really funny because I spent time with a friend this weekend and he said to me, "I think about it all the time how you told me when Tova was young to enjoy the journey because it goes by like a snap." And
Mm,
he's like,
mhm,
"It was some of the best advice you ever could have ever given me
mhm,
because it really is a journey." And I thought about that after he said it back to me, it's like the mirror thing. And I was
mhm,
like,
mhm.
ooh,
Yeah.
it's true. And I think that's me now. I'm opening up and I'm recognizing, enjoying this journey with Trin. That's
Mhm,
completely different journey, but like still allowing my heart to kind of enjoy that and take it in for what
mhm.
it is.
Yeah. So, if you don't mind, maybe we can talk about some of the difficulties you had, like, along the way.
Mhm. So, some of the things that have been that feel when I say this like duh, but some of the things that I have kind of struggled with that I think have maybe made it harder for her and I to bond is the vast difference between French bulldogs and Rottweilers. And I know that sounds really
Sure.
stupid,
No.
but I did all the reading, I did all the research, I did all the things, right? But living that is
Mm,
very different. And
mhm,
experiencing that they couldn't be any different when it comes to size and personality and
mhm.
how they interact with me and the everything. So that is obviously a huge difference between the two of them.
Yeah. I'm in the thick of living with a new breed
Yes,
myself. It's a steep learning curve.
it is. Even
And
when you prepare for it.
it feels like, well, we know dogs.
Mhm.
We've been entrenched in dogs.
Mhm.
We know different breeds,
Mhm.
but it's different when they come and live in your home with you
Mhm. And
as part of your family.
yeah, I even had a French bulldog client puppy and I was like, "Okay, we're good. This is what it's
Yeah.
like." But having a client puppy and having a puppy live with you 24/7, hey guys, it's
Mhm.
different.
Very different.
And then of course, like we know, all dogs are individuals.
Mhm.
The other thing, I wanted a drivier dog. I
Mhm.
asked for that. I got that. Living with that. And
Mhm.
and I know
Fatal error.
no, I actually don't. It's really not, but, like, adjusting to it has been, well, an adjustment.
Yeah.
And drivey French Bulldog is very different than drivey Rottweiler. Duh. And sort of, like, adjusting to that has been different.
Mhm.
She a little shit stirrer, man, and I love that about her. I really do because it's, like, part of that independent, spicy little
Yeah.
personality, but I didn't calculate that.
Mm.
Guys,
Mhm.
she literally tore apart my positive reinforcement dog training book. Like, this dog.
I do remember that text message. I was
The
like, "Are you
irony is
kidding me?"
not lost on me. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was "Don't Shoot the Dog" by Karen Pryor, and she took a big chunk out of the corner.
Now I can shoot the dog. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'm like, this is the definition of irony. Tiago never destroyed anything in his life, and this dog, she can't I wouldn't leave her
Mhm.
just even in the office, to
Right?
go away for an hour. There's that, which is very
Mhm.
different. I think that part of it is I mean, it's been 7 years since I had a puppy at home, so that's an element, and I know I train puppies, but that's very different than 24/7. And also different that when you're not putting pressure on yourself to raise this puppy in a particular way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this big future that you're promising yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I have to say, total honesty here. For years, you've said, when I introduced you to Tiago, I was like, wait till you see what a well bred puppy lives like. And it's so different. And I was like, I think that might just be Tiago. He was a great puppy, but
he was a really great puppy.
and I was like, I hope she's not in for a rude awakening with her next
Mhm.
puppy.
And you know what? When I really look and compare Trin to other puppies, she's
Sure. Yeah.
actually pretty easy in a lot of ways. She really is. It's
Yeah.
just the little shit stir moments or that type of stuff that I'm like, ooh, and the element of us having a lot of emotional baggage about adding a third dog. That plays
Mhm.
into it as well, right?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
have stuff with that. And so that's like a little element that I think plays into it too.
And if you are not familiar, you can go back and listen to the adding an additional dog
Yeah, we talk about
episode.
that.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then potty training with Trin has not been a breeze.
Yeah, it's been a very different experience.
Yes. And I followed all the tips that I gave in our potty training episode. I think I really do believe that part of it is adjusting to a small dog bladder. And that is literally nothing we've ever experienced before. She just
Mm.
has to go more.
Yeah.
And so that was a factor. I at one point was like, I'm like a potty training professional. What is wrong here? And I was told French Bulldog females were harder to potty train, not by her breeder, but other people. And I sort of dismissed that and was not dismissed it, but was like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever, I'll be fine.
We'll see.
Um,
Yeah.
and well, Trin
Yeah.
likes to eat poop. So
Yeah, that's been a really tough one for you.
yeah, it's a tough one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And if anybody's had a shit eater out there, you know. And it's something that's really hard.
Yeah, and so I feel like some people are like, "Well, that's just what dogs do sometimes, like, no big deal." And
Mm,
then there's other people like you who are like, "No, that is disgusting and
yeah.
not okay."
Yeah, no. And it equals in my home because it is disgusting.
Mm,
It equals a really really high level of management in when we're
mhm.
in the yard. And I often see people very lightly when someone posts and says, "My dog's a shit eater. What can I do?" And people are like, "Just pick it up." And I'm like, "Oh, you're just making that sound so simple." But let me tell you, it's not that simple.
Lived experiences are very different
Yeah,
than
they really
than
are.
off the book advice.
And lived experiences in with different situations, you know?
Yeah.
Because like in our situation, it
Yeah.
takes away from my boys having freedom.
Yeah, so one, you really cherish your outside time with your
I
dogs.
do.
You enjoy relaxing outside with
Mhm.
them, and so that's taken that off the table for you, which is
Unless everybody shit that morning.
yeah, which is kind of a grieving, like, you have to kinda
Yeah,
give that up, which
yeah,
is hard,
yeah.
but also, why can't you just pick it up sometimes, Heather?
Oh, because
W
she like fresh serve.
She likes it
Fresh
right out of
serve,
the
right out of the
back end,
dispenser.
right out of there.
Right out of the
So
dispenser, everybody. And
so
she doesn't want it 2 hours later when it's a little bit crusty. She wants fresh out of the dispenser. So,
Mhm.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, so sometimes you're racing hurt before it hits the ground.
Sometimes I am
Every
picking
time.
up taters and Tiago is going.
Oh, no. So you mean they have not caught on to going with
Shh.
it, like, 10 minutes apart so you have time to get each one?
If only. I should train that. I actually said to a friend this weekend, "No, really, if her and I are standing and the one of the boys, I mean, everybody knows their dog's patterns, right? So
Uh-huh,
I'll watch and I'm like, oh, one of the boys are about to go, right? So I'm waiting for them to go. If she's enough distance away, I
uh-huh,
can tell her not to go over there, and she doesn't.
mm.
But she's
which is
standing there.
an amazing that's an
Yes.
amazing
But she's
step
standing there
forward.
licking her lips, Christy.
Okay, but it's a step forward.
She's licking her lips in anticipation of the snack.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's that. So
yeah.
we are working on it. Yes, we
Mhm.
have made progress. She will stay back if I know what's happening. I have the boys on more of a schedule. Thank God they already were like, if I tell them to go poop, they're pretty much like, hey, I'll work on it. So, there's
'Cause
that
they're such great dogs,
because they are. And I think what the biggest part of this whole thing is also, aside from my feelings about Tiago, is our boys were so easy. Like,
Mhm.
so easy. We
Mhm.
managed nothing.
Right.
They're fully trained
Mhm.
exactly the way I want them.
Mhm.
The things that they don't do right, I already gave up about years ago and grieved it and it's over. We were settled in, just so easy. And then I just went and wrecked my whole life. But having said that, I did add so much joy.
Yes. Yeah.
I did. I really, really did. And that's where I am now. I am
Mhm.
circling back around to look at the joy that we've added. And my husband, he's such a dear, soft heart. He just looked at me one day and he was like, I really do enjoy her.
Mm.
I know. I know.
Aw.
It was the sweetest thing. And the guy who just did not want this damn dog.
No. I know he even told me when he picked her up the one day from my house, he said, "I guess I'm just destined to love the bulldogs."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
That is really sweet. Okay, so I feel like we just spent however long ripping on this dog. So
Yeah, but there's a lot of positives,
there are
and you've mentioned some along the way, but what do you think kinda got you over that hump? So,
that's
like, maybe people are struggling with,
tips.
like, "Oh, I'm in the thick of that now.
Yes.
How can I get through it?"
Yeah.
And we all want a quick, easy fix, and I
Mhm.
don't think that's what you're gonna give us today,
Mm-mm.
but maybe some realistic
Yeah.
advice.
Honestly, pretty much everything that helped me get where I am now is because of you. So here's what Christy did for me. One, she never ever judged me when I had feelings. She laughed with me. She made me laugh. And she just sort of took it in and was like, yeah, as I say to Trin, sometimes life is hard. But really, you never made me feel like I shouldn't have the feelings I'm having, that I was the devil, like I
Yep,
was, a wretched human. I mean, you never made me feel that way. And so I think the
good.
acceptance of you just being there for me and listening was a huge piece of
Mhm.
it.
So try to
Your
find a safe spot,
so
like,
find
that you
yep,
can
find a
unload.
safe
Yeah.
friend where you can, even if you have to say to that friend, "Hey, this is really hard right now. I just need a safe space to sort of unload now and again." I think that there's a lot of value in that. I would say your advice to spend time every day thinking about at least one thing that I really enjoy about Trin was super helpful
Oh, good.
because it did help me sort of change my mindset. Like I think I was starting to get on the way of opening my heart. And that just helped me to focus on all the good things about her and the positive things instead of the shit eating. And so that was very helpful. And then the other thing that I would say, and I know not everybody has access to this, but your offer to take her whenever. And obviously, she stayed with you when I had to travel, but I knew that if I really, really got to a point where I was like, I'm just having a tough day, and the tough day didn't have to be Trin. The tough
Yeah.
day could have been 20 other things, and her having a potty accident was on top. I knew that if I would have messaged you and said, "Can you please take her?" that you probably would have come and fetched her.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
knowing
Would
that
have
I
taken me
had
7 hours to
I
get to your house.
know, I know. But knowing I had, like, someone that I trusted as a fallback person, if
Yeah,
I
that's nice.
needed it, was really valuable. And maybe that's not a friend, maybe that's a doggy daycare, maybe that's an
Yeah.
overnight somewhere, any of those things, but we actually talked about that in one of our episodes, about having
Mm,
resources when you bring a new puppy home, and
mhm.
sometimes that might mean having a place where your puppy can go if you need a break.
And there were I will say there were days where I really was with Lucy when she was brand new to me that I really didn't feel like I could spend one more minute with her. Like
Yeah.
I was just over it. Like I was so overwhelmed. And it was like it was things now that I look back and I think, oh, well, I would know how to better deal with that
Mm,
now, or I wouldn't have done those things quite that way and it would have taken care of the
mhm.
problem. But it didn't matter because I was at that place in my
In
journey
the moment.
with the resources I had. And I remember one of the girls I met at the dog park would sometimes say, I'd be like, I'm just in over my head today with her.
Mhm.
And she's like, let me grab her real quick. And they can just play at my house for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then and I would do the same for her. She had, a younger puppy. And so it wasn't, I don't think she had this quite the same feelings, but we could exchange dogs that way
Mhm.
when I
Yeah.
got frustrated or
It's really
yeah,
nice.
it is. It is. I definitely recommend if you don't have a person, maybe like Heather said, a doggy daycare,
Mhm.
rover, whatever. Yeah.
Mhm. Even if it's somebody who takes your dog for a walk for an hour, like, that
Yeah.
break can be everything. And then, of course, giving yourself grace during that time. If you need to kennel that puppy and take a drive and just listen to your favorite podcast or go get a Starbucks or
Mhm.
sit in a parking lot and cry, I don't care, whatever you need to just, like, recognize that and take that time for yourself. I will say there were a lot of other things going on in our life at the same time that were hard, and they were piling on. And I think that that was a factor in this whole thing too. And you can't always foresee what your life is going to be. Everyone wants the day they bring a puppy home for everything to be beautiful and roses, and we're going to
Of
enjoy
course.
this time, and we're going to spend 6 months socializing with this perfect plan, and we're going to teach them all these things, and we're going to do everything the way we expected to do it, and it's just
Mhm.
not life.
Yeah. I think Michelle, when she got my best friend Michelle, when she got her Labradoodle, she did a lot of reading beforehand and
Hmm.
she was reading training books and one of the people said something about like I just want my dog to be my best friend. And she was like, that's what I want. And I openly, wholeheartedly, just gutturally laughed.
Oh, Christy.
Poor Michelle, she puts up with so much from me. And she just kind of looked at me and I go, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that does not happen all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it's like gentle parenting. And sometimes gentle parenting is for gentle children. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not a parent,
Yeah.
but I did not have the gentle child. And so, yes, Lucy and I were best friends in the end. But there were times where I had to be like, knock it off. Like,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on, gotta lay some ground rules.
I feel like sometimes you're just not your best self when you have a puppy, and that doesn't matter how
Yeah.
perfect that puppy is
Oh,
ever.
that's so true. I think sometimes just in life, you're not your
Yeah,
best self
that's so
day
true.
to day. And we should just account for that. Like
Yeah,
some days aren't your best.
and kinda let it go and say, "Oh, that was a moment, or
Yeah.
2, or 3."
Or a day.
Yeah, or a month.
That was a
No.
day.
Yeah, so it I really struggled a little bit with kinda putting this out there just
Sure.
out of complete respect for my dog and
Yeah,
the person who brought her into the world and entrusted her with me,
of
but
course.
I also this is real life, and I think it's
Yeah.
real life for a lot of people.
Mhm. And I think it's real life and it's real hard to talk about, especially in today's climate where everyone can just pile on if
Mhm.
if you're not perfect or if you don't say the perfect thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I think, why we wanted to, like we talked about when we started this podcast, like we want to create a safe space to talk about sometimes tough things
Mm-hmm.
or things that maybe other people are experiencing but not able to safely talk through.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is, if you're struggling with it, social media is probably not your friend. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would go to social media and be like, "Hey, I'm really struggling liking my puppy." But, do find some safe spots. And that's why we wanted to bring it up, is that I think it happens more often than people let on.
Yeah.
Because I've heard from several people. I remember feeling terrible after I was like, "Oh, I didn't like Lucy for several months."
Yeah.
I just kept that like, "Woah, no, nobody needs to know that because now I like her and it's fine." And I remember being on a camping trip and the girl goes, "Oh, it was so tough to bond with my dog after my heart dog passed." She goes, "I got my
Oh,
next dog," and she was like, and I don't, for months, I was like, "I made a huge mistake. I don't love you." Oh, and now they are like adventure buddies. He's like the best thing that ever happened to her. But hearing it again and again from people, I'm like, this is not a one-off. Heather is
yeah.
not experiencing a
Mm,
one-off situation. I think
yeah.
it happens more often than not, and I don't think a lot of people are sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is exactly, of course, why we want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trin is now 8 months old. We have
Yes.
survived. We
Yeah.
love each other.
She's great.
I even let her kiss me with her shit eating.
Ooh, that is a big.
Not on the same day.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yes. And we are adventuring together
Is
and
that Tootsie Roll in your mouth?
what?
Is that a Tootsie Roll in your
Oh,
mouth?
that's what we used to say about Remy, that she was eating
Oh,
Tootsie Rolls.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we are building a relationship, and
Yeah.
that is happening brick by brick, moment by moment, and struggle by struggle.
Mhm.
And I really, really believe that 5 years from now, I will listen to this episode and be like, what the hell was wrong with me? And also, Tiago will be 12 and still here.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course he will be. Yeah. That is not even up for debate. Yeah, and I think as I've watched your relationship progress
Mm,
with Trin, you can tell that you enjoy her. There was never a time where I was like, "Ooh, is she getting what she needs?" Or there was no doubt in my mind she was being well cared for, loved, all the things. But now you can just tell there's an enjoyment between the two of you in that relationship, and a lot of joy there,
yeah,
which is fun to watch that grow because that does take time. Regardless, that deepens. Even if you start out at a really good place,
yeah,
that deepens and grows as you continue your relationship with your dog.
yeah, it's true.
Or at least
It's
we
true.
hope you do. It does.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because it definitely has been a journey, and it's been hard at times, and it's been sad
Mhm.
at times and disappointing and all of that stuff. But there have been moments of joy, and those moments of joy are getting bigger and they're spreading longer, and that much I am so thankful for because she really is a great dog
She
and she
is.
really is everything I asked for. So I feel so fortunate that that part of it was never a question, right?
Yeah.
I just had to have my heart and my head like catch up with everything else.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share your experience with everyone, Heather, so that other people can also benefit from what you've been going through over the last several months, and see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel and the hope in the journey.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being such a supportive friend throughout this whole thing.
Oh, well, you're welcome. If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.